It's Divas That Care Radio. Stories, strategies, and ideas to inspire positive change. Welcome to Divas That Care, a network of women committed to making our world a better place for everyone. This is a global movement for women, by women, engaged in a collaborative effort to create a better world for future generations. To find out more about the movement, visit divasthatcare.com after the show. Right now, though, stay tuned for another jolt of inspiration.
Well, hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Divas That Care. My name is Candace Gish. If this is your very first time tuning in to us, a huge welcome. We've been doing this now for 13 years, and we're listened to in over 30 countries around the world, and honestly, it is so much fun. We have a variety of amazing hosts and exceptional guests, and it is so much fun to be having the opportunity to chat with these amazing individuals, and they always give us some tips and tools, and they're always so inspiring, and it's just an honor that I'm able to do this. Make sure you go check out all of our other shows at divasthatcare.com and go support those amazing individuals. All right, I am excited. Today I'm going to be introducing a brand new diva to our family, and I've been doing a lot of that lately. Isn't it great? You know, we have all these amazing new people that are joining us, and it is so much fun to get to know them. Elish Keating is my guest today, and I'm so excited to get to know her. So, Elish, welcome to the show today.
Candace, thank you for having me on. I'm delighted to be here.
It is my pleasure to have you on the program. Would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners today?
Absolutely. So my name is Elish Keating. I'm Irish by birth. I lived in the States actually for about 26 years, and I'm back in Ireland now about 3 years. I'm on the west coast of Ireland as we speak right now. When I was in the States, I worked a lot of corporate work, real estate, hotels, hospitality, things like that, in New York and then up in Maine. And then about 4 years ago, I got quite sick, and I ended up deciding to move back to Ireland just to be nearer to family in case things didn't go so well as it was predicted at the time. So I moved back to Ireland, and I used the time and the opportunity to I was like, okay, well, I'm given a second chance here. So I really wanted to bring more of my life into kind of alignment with really what I wanted to be spending my time doing. If I was going to be spending more time here and lucky enough to do that, I was going to make it worthwhile. So really kind of starting to get to the things that were personally important for me and not postpone those things. So that brings us around to today. I now work as an RTT practitioner, which is a rapid transformational therapy practitioner and a coach and mentor. And I do a range of different things with people, from hypnotherapy to a couple of techniques I've developed to help people get to either the mental or emotional causation of issues in their life, let's call it. That's it in a nutshell.
It's amazing, though, isn't it? It's amazing how there's certain things that happen in our lives that lead us to another possibility. I always think, we never necessarily always envision how our lives are going to be, but it takes us to another thing. I'm interested actually in learning what rapid transformational therapy is. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, it is. It's a technique that I ended up using along my journey to get better, and I really quite liked it, and I liked how it works. It was developed by Marissa Peer. She's known as probably the world's most famous hypnotherapist or therapist in general. And it involves a combination of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, or traditional talk therapy and hypnotherapy to work with an individual to bring about rapid transformation in usually 1, 2, or 3 sessions. So the general idea is that most of our patterns in life are caused by an earlier incident, whatever that is. It doesn't matter what the thing is. If it could be anything from smoking to an addiction to a trauma-related thing to a fear of flying, it doesn't really matter. Most of them are caused by an earlier thought program, memory, or incident. So under hypnosis, when we can go back and release any emotional and mental attachment to whatever happened and then reprogram it and kind of just release it and clear it from our field, so to speak, then we can move on, and the patterns and programs that were being held in place by that event are then released also as well. So you can make fairly rapid progress without without having to revisit something over and over again, without having years of therapy to try and process it. You can just clear it out. So I like it from that perspective.
Yeah. Do a lot of people do that?
Individuals. Do a lot of people? Yeah, it's quite popular. And there's a lot, in the last, say, 5 years, I think it's grown quite a lot in popularity, and there's a lot of practitioners. I don't know how many are in the States. There's probably about at least 50 or 100, if not more, in the States, and it's quite popular in England because that's where Marissa's based, but she travels back and forth between Los Angeles and London and down to Australia. So it's proper, but it works. It's like when you have a good tool, it becomes well known, basically, because it either works or it doesn't.
Exactly. And I like that you don't have to do it forever then.
No, me too. Like, I don't like where somebody has to, sign up for something where it has to be ongoing for years. That just it doesn't suit. Our world isn't designed that way. You go to school, which is for years, and you go to work for years, but the rest we should be able to move through fairly efficiently. So
exactly.
Now, it depends on the individual, though. I have friends, for example, who could do all of this work, and they're very happy because going to their therapist, the therapist acts as a confidant, and it acts as somebody that they can process. They're almost in this coach position, so they go to them regularly. And that's whatever works, right? It's just a matter of...
I agree. But I think in my life, I was like, I don't have the time. I need things that don't take a lot of time because there's always something else happening next. And I like the idea that it would be a shorter period of time and I could do that, focus on it, and then move on.
Right, because there's always the problem is we have plenty of stuff to work on. So once you clear one thing, then you get to another layer of stuff, right? So and then you go through that. So it's this continual evolution. There's no one-stop shopping for all of our issues. I don't think that exists. And tell me where it is, please, if you find it. So what we have to do is kind of like a progression. Where you, it's a different level. It's like leveling up in a game or something. You go through, you clear this, you're like, okay, this is what I'm working with now. And I think people who are successful, they say people who are successful, it's not that stuff doesn't happen to them, it's that they get more skilled at solving the problems that do happen. So that's really the way we have to look at it, because nobody has an incident-free life. Something happens at some point to everybody.
Exactly.
So if you have better tools, then you can navigate that water a lot better, and that's the ideal. That's the case how I view it.
Yeah, I would say that too. So a question that I have is, because you're in Ireland, can you do this online, or does the person have to be in your office to do this?
No, we can do it. We do this online, and each session takes about an hour and a half I'd say at a minimum. So an hour and a half, 2 hours is the maximum, an hour and a half at minimum, and it works perfectly well online. Usually it's over Zoom, and with this particular technique, it's good to be able to see the person as you're doing it. So usually it's with the camera on and over Zoom, so you can see if somebody has fallen asleep or is processing some stuff, or you can keep an eye on them visually. But and when somebody's under, people often have questions about what's it like to be hypnotized. I don't know if you've had other hypnotherapists on the show or not, but how I describe it is this: when you're under hypnosis, it's almost like if you've ever had that experience of where you're lying in bed and somebody walks into the room and you want to pretend that you're sleeping still. It's kind of like that, where you're right between that awake and asleep point. You could wake up, you could open up your eyes and do something if you needed to, but you're just more inclined to stay where you are and not do that. That's all. So all you're doing is switching off the conscious mind so that you can get to the subconscious mind, which is all of the answers.
Oh, wow, I love that. That is really, that's really neat. I think that's exceptional. And I think a lot of people are trying to find different ways to look after ourselves, trying to just look after our health. But I think that you work on a lot of other root problems also, don't you? Yeah, I do. I like to. So I work on things now. I find generally that there's two main kind of causations. It's either mentally, so some negative repeat thinking and that creates patterns and programs that aren't helpful, or there's emotional blockages. And that's from emotions that haven't been processed, that somebody isn't connecting to, but the emotions are kind of running the show in the background. So if somebody has some things, and they're as I've seen it, they're the two main categories that most things can fall under. When you're looking for it, it's kind of the unseen problems, right? So you might have a health condition, or you might have a recurring theme in your life that you would really like to move
past, whatever that is. And it's usually a combination of those two things or either one that's running in the background that is bringing this thing into your life. Once you can clear these out, then you have a much better possibility of being able to address whatever is in front of you and ideally make progress, like move on, so you don't keep moving next to and having the same neighbors next door, or you don't keep attracting the same boyfriend or girlfriend into your life that keeps doing the same thing. So you can actually move beyond these repeated patterns that just show up, you know.
How do you get that information out there? Like, how are people learning about this?
So, well, a lot of it, I do some, so I'm on social media, so I have my own things. I have a blog, and then I have a mailing list, and a lot of it is conversation, a lot of referrals in, and then, Facebook and Instagram. I'm not really on YouTube, or I haven't done TikTok yet. I don't know. You can only get so many things done during the day. You can spend your whole time creating content, and not seeing clients. So that's kind of how I work with it. But it depends. The first thing is to know that it exists, because quite often, if you don't have an answer in your life, most people are drawn to find a solution. So how I do it is I actually have a very, if it was just me, I say to fight out loud to the universe and say, listen, bring me what I need and make it obvious, but make it gentle but obvious. I don't want it to be a dramatic thing. So most people, if they're actually open up their mind, right? I've done that too. That's why I put my clauses in. If they're open to receiving the information, it can come to you in lots of different ways. So you're often be waiting in line sometimes, and you'll see a flyer that has the thing that you're needing, or somebody mentions something in a conversation. What I've discovered recently is that whatever I'm interested in is usually my intuition is telling me, look at this more closely. Okay? So somebody says something in conversation, and I don't really know why I'm interested in what they've just said, but I find myself asking them more questions. I find that's my intuition is leading me in that direction. I wouldn't necessarily recognize it as that. So I see everybody else as being the same as me, and everybody might be totally different, obviously, but I can only experience myself. That's how it works for me.
That is fascinating. Well, we definitely have to get this out there more. I really like the idea of it. I like the idea of it being short and sweet. I like that we can focus on one specific thing and work on and build towards the next thing. I really think that that's a positive. I'm not a person myself that likes to dwell on things for a long period of time. And I know that if there's a solution and I can figure it out and have somebody help me through that and get it done quick and easy, then that's what I want to do. Right, because you've already spent a lot of time working at whatever it is. So it's kind of like, so you've been working on something for a long time, and once it moves out of the way, then you're like, okay, now I can make some progress, and then we get to the next level of whatever we need to see or experience. But it's good to be able to do that. And what I find is with everything, and this has been true with medication to diet to whatever, if I'm doing something that works for me, I'll get feedback on that within 1, 2, 3, or 4 weeks. I don't have to wait a long period of time. If something hasn't worked for me, I'm 6 months into it and I haven't seen it, 6 weeks even into it, and I haven't seen a change, for me, if I haven't gotten any positive feedback from, let's say, that feedback loop, it's probably not going to work, even though and I only know this from doing things from long periods of time, so I find that when I'm on something that works specifically for me, I'll start to get positive feedback somewhere quickly. Things will happen quickly within that, 1, 2, 3, 6 weeks, or I may need to try something else. So. Well, we live in a society of instant gratification now too. We expect results quickly, and this, in a way, allows us to have that. And there's been a lot of issues in regards to mental health in the last couple of years. I think that's really skyrocketed and there's probably, as you said, there's a lot of trigger things. There's probably a lot of things that are involved in that. And I really think that something like this could help so many people in a very quick span of time, because I think that's what society needs right now. We need to figure some things out so that it gets better, and then we can start moving on a lot quicker. Yeah, I think you're right. I agree with you on that. And people's attention span are short, but it almost seems like time has also sped up a good bit, so our information and everything that we process, everything has sped up, the amount of information, all of it. So this is a really good tool for those times. And then after that, there's 2 components to everything, right? So there's the work that you do
when, say, if I'm working with somebody, and then there's the choices and actions somebody takes afterwards. And they're like two different things. But ideally, you don't want your choices to be competing with the results that you want. You want everything moving in the direction of an end goal. And then once you have that end goal, or a few goals quite going off in the future, then keep doing what you need to do to, expand your life and have better experiences.
I like that. I really like this. This is amazing. I'm really excited about all this. How can our listeners, if they're really interested in learning more about this, how can they find you? How do they get a hold of you to learn more?
Thanks. So my website is ailish.com. That's AILISH.com. And I am on Instagram at ailish.keating. And they're the two main places that people reach out to me. If somebody wants to email me, it's ailish, AILISH, at ailish.com. And then I'm on Facebook also, Ailish E. Keating. So that's the general theme. But I'd love to. I'm happy to talk to people. I really do like to point people in the right direction. I personally find it most helpful when people will say, okay, this is what I think would be most helpful for you. And that, that would be, if that's something I can do with them, I will say that. If I think it's something else, I will say that, because we really need to, for people to see results, for them to get healthier mentally, physically, emotionally, because it impacts all of us. We're all in this together. So the better people feel, the better it is for everybody. It's not just,
It's that rippling effect, isn't it? The more that we're better, the more people around us are.
Yeah, exactly. It impacts families. It impacts relationships. It impacts kids in school. It impacts all of us. And when we're all better, we're all better. That's the good thing about it, when it comes to progress.
And you don't just do that. You have other modalities that you use, correct?
Yeah, I do have other modalities that I use. So sometimes it's straight up, just advice and coaching. And then the other thing that I've come up with is another system. I call it emotional alchemy. And that really, really works on the emotions and the emotional body. And I find there's a lot of what happens when people are growing up. Mentally, we respond one way, and then emotionally we respond another. And with emotional alchemy, when people have emotions that are stuck, right, they tend to, most of the strongest emotions come up when we're children, and we don't have the tools to manage them at the time, so you stuff them down, or you're in an awkward situation where you can't express, or you're told to, quit crying and whatever, get over it, and so you stuff it down, right? And then the next time that something comes along that might trigger you or somebody, the first response is to stuff it down because you don't know how to handle it. And then the next thing comes along and you stuff that down. So over time, these emotions get stacked. So when something takes you by surprise, you might find yourself losing it all of a sudden out of the blue. You thought you had it all together, and then something comes along and it derails you. And you're like, where did that come from? That's kind of not who I am, not how I respond. So what I've found is that because of these emotions stack, there's another process I do, and this one, with emotional alchemy, we really work on the emotions. It's kind of like a deep cleaning. It's just another session. And from that, huge transformation can happen also as well for people, where you can process years of stuff in a single session or two. And it really, really, really quite changes things as well as you feel better. So that's another, they're the two main tools that I found most helpful. They're powerful tools, and people see results, straight away from them. Sometimes you got to get up to speed with the change too. So some people it's like, oh my gosh, I wasn't expecting to feel better. I just was actually doing a yoga retreat this weekend, and I had 10 women were on up in the north of Ireland, and I did this process with them, and I heard from one of them when she got back to the message, and she said, listen, thanks that I've noticed that I'm less. She has a 5-month-old baby, and she's like, I notice I feel I'm arguing less with her other daughter who's 7 years old. So it's unplugged the stress,
wonderful.
Whatever was in her. So our home is now more harmonious. That should last, because quite often when we're stressed about something, when something's there that needs to be processed, life will bring us situations, people, events, conditions that's going to trigger it. And the reason it does that is so that we release it. But often we don't realize we're supposed to be releasing these things and like clearing them through. So instead, we don't deal with them, and we just keep attracting situations that trigger them. The reason the triggers come along is to help us clear the stuff, whatever it is. And if we're not clearing it with each trigger properly, and nobody's told us how to do it either, so that's the problem, then these instances, these things will continue to trigger us. Once you clear it out, you don't get triggered anymore because it's not there.
Do you work with children also?
I have worked with children, and I could work with children, absolutely. I just haven't been in front of a child audience yet on it. But children are amazing at some of this stuff once they know what to do. You know, it's really easy for them. So I have worked with some on the hypnotherapy, on anxiety, and I haven't done the emotional alchemy yet with kids, but there's no reason why it wouldn't work. And actually, once somebody would see how you can use it, they would be, if the child is willing, sometimes they do, sometimes they really, honestly, sometimes they just need to express. I mean, what happens is us as adults is we haven't expressed, therefore we stuff it down, and therefore we have the backlog. With kids, actually, if you let them express naturally, they will, and then they'll get over it with attention. Then you got to give them your full attention, because usually they want attention. Let them express, and then give them attention, and then they're okay. They'll stop and continue on.
I'm a big supporter of having children learn all these techniques. So I think they learn them at a younger age, then they're going to be just better adults. And I honestly think that's what we need a little bit more of in this world. Is and tapping. I do tapping also as well, emotional freedom technique, and that's wonderful for children also as well, and parents. It's so super uncomplicated, and kids do it actually quite naturally once they know how to do it, because everybody wants to kind of stay in control for the most part, and even losing it, it's because they want the attention. That's what they do. That's true. Oh my gosh, this has been so much fun. I'm going to ask you, do you have, one of the things I ask my guests is if they have any last minute tips, tools, or other things they want to share with our listeners. So do you have any of those? The more and more, so the one I've been thinking of mostly is that if you're not getting, what I've noticed is this, okay, if something is important to me, this is how I come up with the emotional alchemy technique. If things were important to me and I started putting my energy into them, and all of a sudden I wouldn't be getting the results that I wanted. It would often seem like it was the opposite, right? And what I've discovered is that was because I had a backlog of unresolved things. So what I've discovered is when you want things to go whatever way, you're best if you take expectation off them, and if you take and you stop putting energy, if something's important to you, if you can take expectation off the thing that's important to you, and if you can ideally maybe not put too much energy into it, particularly if things don't go so well, if you do put energy into it, you'll be a lot better off. So if you become a little bit, step back from it, set your intention, and don't put too much energy into it. If things don't usually go the way you want, you've got to learn how to step back a little bit more and get a little bit uninvolved. Be clear about what you want, but don't put the weight of expectation on your results. Because expectation is like a joy, it's like a results killer. I expected X, Y, Z. If you expect something, usually it kills ideas. So take expectation off the table. Set your intention, but don't have expectations, right? And then you won't be taken by surprise. You'll be able to. You'll be there. You'll be a lot clearer. You'll see what's actually going on all the time instead of getting lost just waiting for a certain outcome. You'll be a lot clearer, a lot more alert, a lot more able to respond. I really like that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We're gonna have to do this again. I had so much fun.
I love that.
There's just so much it can teach us.
Oh yeah, we could talk all day. So thank you very much for the opportunity to speak to everybody here and to yourself, to your good self, and I'd love to do it again.
Oh my goodness, I really did enjoy it, and I can't wait to have you back on the program. I think that this is exactly what we're looking for 2023 is finding some techniques to help us get through the last few years and really move on with our lives in a very positive way.
Yeah, 100%. I think the more and more grounded we can become and more open and aware, it helps everybody.
I think so too. This is great. Thank you again so much for being my guest today. Huge shout out to all of our amazing listeners out there. Thank you so much for tuning into today's program. I'm going to be posting all of our information on our social media, so you can go check it out. What a great website, guys. You got to check this out. And I really think it's important to go check out all of our other hosts and all of their amazing programs, because those guests too are just extraordinary. This year our goal is to really inspire each and every one of you to lead a really healthy lifestyle, to find these techniques that Alicia was saying, and so that we can be better people in this world. I think that's really important, to be the best versions of ourselves. And even if we can improve ourselves 1% every day, I really, truly believe we can make the world a better place. So thank you again to my amazing guests. Thank you to all of our amazing listeners. And please remember to do something kind. Until next time, everyone.
Thanks for listening. This show was brought to you by Divas That Care. Connect with us on Facebook, on Instagram, and of course on divasthatcare.com, where you can subscribe to our newsletter so you don't miss a thing.